Yes, actually eat the blood. Or you'd mix it together. You'd cut the palms of your hands, you'd hold each other's hands, and you'd let it mingle. Signifying that my blood is now in you, and your blood is now in me, and that we have the same blood running through each of our veins, that we are one, that my life is now hidden in yours, and your life is now hidden in mine. Sounds familiar? Another important thing is you'd have to have witnesses. You can't just do this in, your living room and expect people to believe that you're blood brothers. Okay, you'd have to invite the whole village basically, and they would witness this thing take place. And the purpose for that was this: if one of you ever breaks the covenant, the witness's responsibility is to say, "Wait a minute, you are a blood brother. You need to get your act together and honor this man because he's your brother." One thing different they would do that's very different from a contract is they would have a lawyer assigned. That lawyer would not represent either party, but would rather represent the covenant. And he would sign a document saying that he is the primary witness of this covenant taking place. And his responsibility and his job is to make sure that the covenant is honored. Unlike a contract where you each hire your own lawyer who looks after your own interests. One lawyer for one covenant, not for each individual. And then they would exchange the tokens. And of course, the scars on your arms, and I'm focusing on the non-Jewish people because that's who we are. We're Gentiles, right? The scars on your arms from cutting yourself to give your blood, that's a pretty serious token. That's saying, I am a blood brother to someone. There's the scar. The other thing they would do is they would write the agreement of the covenant on a piece of paper. They would each sign the name. They would use that bloody knife that they used to cut each other's arms with. They would smear it on the paper. They would fold the paper up, put it in a leather pouch, and they would wear that leather pouch around their either waist or neck or arm for the rest of their lives. They'd never take it off as a token of remembrance of that day. Finally, two things left. Depending on the culture, only two cultures did this, the Jewish and Pacific Islanders. They'd plant a tree of remembrance, and they'd sprinkle that tree with blood, signifying that, that tree is going to be there for a long time, and we will kind of look at that tree and be like, hey, remember, we're blood brothers. And the last thing is the most fun, is sharing of a covenant meal. Now that's a blast, because, what consummates the covenant, what seals the deal, what says this is in effect, is you sit down together at the same table and you break bread together. You actually share the same meal. And when you do all that, congratulations, you have a blood brother that you're never getting out of unless you die. Now, why did I go through all this? I went through all this to show you, through Scripture, that this is how God decided to relate to us. God Himself saw how all people groups, because of an internal witness in our hearts, as it says in Romans 1, understand blood covenant. He even instilled that in us, that notion of blood covenant in us, and He said, this is how I want to show you what I mean when I say I love you. This is how I want to show my love to you. So let's see how God has satisfied all of these 7 rites of blood covenanting. All right. The first one is basically the vows and the commitment. Okay? The first one is the commitment. This should be pretty clear because Jim Bucci has gone over this 100 times in 3 weeks. So, first slide please, Crystal. The first one is Jeremiah 31 to 34. This is when God said, hey, the time is coming when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. There it is. I'm making a new covenant. There's the declaration. There's the commitment. There's the word spoken. I'm making a new covenant. I'm not going to read through the whole thing because we've read it before. Right, Jim? Yeah. And so the next slide says, I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. And at the end of 34 it says, for I will forgive their wickedness, and I will remember their sins no more. There's the deal. There's the agreement. There's another vow that he has made. You guys ever heard of the verse that says, I will never leave you nor forsake you? That's a shame, because it doesn't say that in the Greek at all. It's that plus like 1,000 more powerful words than that. And the Amplified comes closest. In the Amplified, he says this. This is his promise, his vow. For he, God himself, has said, I will not in any way fail you, nor give you up, nor leave you without support. I will not. I will not. Wait for it. I will not in any degree leave you helpless, nor forsake you, nor let you down. Relax my hold on you, assuredly not. Here's a promise. Here's a promise. What'd you do to get that? That's 2 weeks from now. Okay. Now, I'm going to change the order a little bit, but, we need witnesses. Who witnessed this covenant take place? Because, God can't just do it in secret and just be like, word in my Bible, go check it out. There were witnesses involved. You guys know Hebrews 11? You guys know that chapter? I mean, you should be all, yeah? The faith guys, the people who got righteous because of their faith, right? Well, at the end of Hebrews 11, it says something very interesting. It says, these were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. It's interesting. One of the guys in that Hebrews 11 is Abraham. Even he didn't get what was promised. But God had planned something. Does that really say better? God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect? Wow. So, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, there you go. There's the word. I did my job. I got the word in there somehow. Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Now, you want to know how they were witnesses? Ask me afterwards. I don't have time to get into it now. That's a whole other rabbit trail that I'm not willing to go into at this point. But they witnessed, all these people, all these great men of faith, all these people who we look at and we're like, oh, how do you do that? All these people did not receive the promise. They had to wait for us to show up. They had to wait for us to show up before they could be made perfect. And they witnessed this new covenant take place, this blood covenant take place. Okay. We are getting into some heavy stuff now. This is where it gets... Okay. Now we talked about tokens. We talked about how blood brothers would have scars on their arms to show that they were covenant people. Somebody we love very much has scars all over him. John chapter 20, 24 to 28. Let me give you the background. Jesus, resurrected, comes back, shows up to 10 people in the room. Well, there are probably more people than that, but basically Thomas wasn't there, okay? He shows up, he says, look at my hands, look at my side, I'm here, give me something to eat, I'm alive, I'm good to go. They say, oh, that's pretty cool. He leaves, Thomas shows up, they tell Thomas, hey, we saw God. And Thomas is like, unless I touch those hands, and unless I put my hand in his side, I am not going to believe. So a week later, a week later, Jesus shows up. It says, now Thomas, One of the 12 wasn't with the disciples when Jesus came, so the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side." Actually, into his side. That's private space? Okay. "I will not believe it." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Notice Jesus' approach. He has every right to be ticked off. I do all this and you still won't believe? But he walks in saying, "Peace be with you." Okay. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas must have done so, or maybe he was too ashamed to, and then said, "My Lord and my God." But then Jesus says something very interesting. And I don't know if this is uncouth. I don't know if you can do this, like, cut a verse. I mean, Jim, am I allowed cut a verse and then use a different translation? Okay, thanks. Jesus said to him, "Because you have seen me, Thomas, do you now believe, trust, have faith? Blessed and happy and to be envied are those who have never seen me and yet have believed and adhered to and trusted and relied on me." That's you guys. That's us. You are to be envied to believe in those scars without seeing. You are to be envied. That's all you have to do. You have to believe, adhere to, and trust in. And then you'll be envied and blessed. I don't know how it works. That's what he says. Okay. We get to the fun part. Because, I'm a food guy. You gotta have a meal. You got to have a meal. You want to consummate this thing, you have to have a meal. I love Psalm 23. You know the Psalm? Okay. Shadow of death, valley, pastures, makes me lie down, staff and rod comfort me. Those guys, yeah. Okay. There's a really weird verse in that Psalm. That just is not fitting there at all. Why are we talking about preparing a table before my enemies? I don't get it. It doesn't really fit. But verse 5, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Anybody ever wonder what that means? Well, here's what it means. It means, back in the day, back when this was written, and before that, the way two armies would come together to fight is they would, of course, fight in the valley. And they would encamp up in mountains. So that the kings and the generals would be able to see the battlefield, have a bird's eye view, and say, you go there, you go this, battalion there, that kind of stuff. Now, the night before the battle, what you would do is you would set up a table facing the enemy's camp. And on that table you would have a meal with the kings that you are in covenant with. So you'd have king this, king of that, king of far away. And you'd sit with them and you'd say, you're looking at your enemy, and you'd say, "You come against me tomorrow. Just letting you know, you're coming against this guy, that guy, and the other guy. Not just me." Because of blood covenant, when you look at your enemy,